Dolphins fans should be oh so familiar with what has transpired here in December with your NFL franchise. It must seem like Groundhog Day. The Dolphins went up to Foxborough with the season on life support. Miami desperately needed to somehow, some way, pull off a road victory over the mighty New England Patriots to keep the team's faint playoff hopes alive. And what happened?
They laid an egg. This is something that we've seen so many times in Foxborough. Second half of the game, 41-13 loss. They allowed the Patriots to produce a franchise record 24 points in the third quarter. They tanked.
And the Patriots gave the Dolphins the one thing Joe Philbin's team could not afford if he was going to keep his job past this season. Belichick and Brady delivered a blowout win that sealed their AFC East division title.
The Dolphins pretty much Joe Philbin sealed his fate with the Dolphins. I mean, he's pretty much a dead man walking, moving forward to the final two games of the season.
So he's saying it's guaranteed. Can Joe Philbin do anything to save his job? That is the question we'll be addressing on X's and Omar today. We'll also be talking about Philbin's possible replacements. Why wait? I'm CBS 12's Matt Lincoln. He's Sun Sentinel Dolphins columnist Omar Kelly. You are defeated Dolphins fans just waiting for the axe to swing. As usual, we're going to take your questions on Twitter. All you have to do is ask them using the hashtag XOmar. And we're looking for your challenges. We've got our referee here.
That was a strong whistle today, man.
He's good, man. He's good. Finally, huh? It only took him until week 16 to figure this whole thing out. Please fire away. Our first question, let's just get into it, comes from Andy Lawson. At Sir Andy Lawson. You said games are won or lost in the trenches. Has Miami's O-line improved that much over last year now looking at it?
Looking at it from the standpoint, if you're considering the offensive line with Brandon Albert in it, yeah, right. The improvement was there. I personally like Mike Pouncey as the right guard. He's at the point of contact. He's opening up the running lanes in basically for the running backs. That's part of the reason why they're averaging right now 4.5 yards per carry, which is an improvement from last year. Mike Pouncey is a solid guard. If you want to move him to center, you certainly can. You have options there at guard moving forward. The question is, can the offensive line improve when Brandon Albert comes back and Dallas Thomas isn't there at right tackle? Jawan James is the guy filling in at right tackle. I like the offensive line. I think they need a younger center and another guard, and they should be ready to go. But in terms of the trench question, yeah, they're getting beat up in the trenches, but a lot of the times when you have big leads against the big deficits against the Ravens and against New England, yeah, the defense is going to pin their ears back and get after the quarterback, and that's what's going to allow a lot of these late sacks that you're seeing. Plus, the quarterback doesn't have great pocket presence.
Well, I mean, that's when you look at the way that Patriots game went. That first half, in which it was just a one-point game at halftime, there were funky bounces, there were sort of weird plays. All credit to the way the final minute was handled. That was great by Joe Philbin and then the players.
Hey, you all questioned his timeout calling ability. He called 3 timeouts and got himself correct. 7 points. Unfortunately, timeouts, to me, don't make a difference in terms of how you win or lose a game.
Right.
It's about coaching. It's about the adjustments. It's about motivating your players. And as you see, Joe Philbin lacks in a lot of those areas. His team should be getting better in December, and they're not.
Well, and then after all those weird bounces happened in that first half, in that third quarter, it was just football on football, my team versus your team, and the Patriots dominated them from start to finish of that third quarter.
The problem is you cannot give the Patriots 21 points. You can't gift wrap points for them. You can't put them on their side of the field in terms of turnovers and expect a good outcome. These are the Patriots. They're a quick strike team, and when you give them opportunity, they generally score points off turnovers. Dolphins gave them 2 interceptions and then the punt block that was returned for a touchdown. You know, you're not going to beat the Patriots giving them 21 points.
And not being able
You have to generally, if you want to beat the Patriots, you have to play a perfect game. And either play a perfect game or really be hot on the offense. How often have you seen, or pressure the quarterback? Dolphins did none of the 3. And pretty much that they haven't done any of the 3 in December.
At Chris Bustin 13, give us one reason to be optimistic about next season if both Tannehill and Philbin are back.
I think we've seen improvements from Ryan Tannehill. The question is if the offense remains consistent and if improvements are made to the team, can they get better? Can they be a 9 to 10 win team, playoff team? I mean, the improvements aren't going to be drastic.
Right.
Yes, certainly you're going to get a better linebacker. You're going to have to improve some aspects of depth on the defense in terms of the defensive line. But can Joe Philbin coach this team to 10 wins? I mean, can Ryan Tannehill as a quarterback lead this team to 10 wins? I don't know. We're kind of stretching a little bit there. You have to do better as a team from a personnel standpoint. You have to do better as a team from a quarterback execution standpoint. You have to do better as a coaching staff in terms of putting your team in position to be successful in order to be what the Ravens are or what the Patriots are. That, to me, this past 2 games is a blessing in disguise because it alleviates all the false hope that we had. It alleviates all the false perceptions that we're there, we're close, we're contenders. No, you're not. The Ravens punked you. And then the next week, the Patriots, which are the cream of the crop, the best team in the decade, who just so happens to be in your division, they smushed your face in.
Right.
And you're not close.
So, we've talked about this team going 9-7, having first winning record since 2008.
That's still important.
That is still important. So there is still something to play for.
Oh, absolutely. And now the question is, can Joe Philbin get his team and players to not check out?
Yeah.
Or get them to play for things outside of their own agendas? I know that that's what the players are playing for now. The question is, can Joe Philbin switch gears and get them to play motivated football for the team, to produce a better record? Can he help them raise and elevate their level of play? And I don't see it happening. I just don't. I mean, I'm right now questioning whether or not they get to 9 wins.
More of your questions at Bill Yee 3. For the sake of argument, what convinces anyone the Dolphins can win a big game, let alone a playoff game?
You know what? Dave Hyde wrote an excellent column in today's Sun Sentinel pointing out the 9 steps and miracles that it's going to take for the Dolphins to get to the playoffs. I think he put it at a 0.17% of a chance. And it's true. They're not mathematically eliminated yet. The Red Sea has to part in order for them to get there. And I'm talking about teams have to lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars in the final 2 games. It's not going to happen. But they don't deserve to be in the playoffs. Good teams play better in December. Have these Dolphins play better in December? You saw the Jets. The Jets gift wrapped the victory. Now, yeah, it was an ugly win. It was an ugly win, and you take any win that you can. But if the Jets aren't making special teams mistakes and penalties and giving you field position, you probably might have lost to the Jets. And certainly they're going to get another opportunity to put one in your butt in the season finale. And then Ravens, you got punked. New England, embarrassed. They're not playing good in December. So there is no reason to have confidence in their performance in December. No reason to have confidence that they're going to go into Minnesota or actually you're going to take on Minnesota in Sun Life and dominate a mediocre team.
All right. This is a team that played very well in October and November. Even in losses against very good teams, played very well.
Not the same team.
And now this is not
We're
the
not
same
looking
team.
at the same team.
It certainly doesn't look like
the defense has been the backbone of this team. The defense has gone limp. That defensive line, they're not stopping anybody. They're not rushing any quarterback. They're playing with like one healthy cornerback, and everybody else is being masked by hiding injuries. It's not the same team that you're looking at.
Juwan James hit that rookie wall, as we've talked about that.
2 sacks, a penalty, 11 hurries. You're on fumes in December as a team.
Let's talk about this real quick, though. The one thing that did happen that we saw in that Patriots game, for once, Tannehill went deep, attacked down the field.
That's
to some success.
That's positive. Here's what was happening against New England. The Patriots were giving them man coverage, press man coverage, including Mike Wallace, who wasn't defended by Darrelle Revis, and single safety high, which means one safety 30 yards downfield who basically had to choose one side of the field or the other to cover. If you could have run a 9 route with Hartline and Wallace and just have a pick, it was a man-on-man. You pick whatever you want. They gave that to them all of the first half, and the Dolphins took it, and they attacked it, and they threw it. Now, it was an aggressive play call by Bill Belichick in terms of him saying, Ryan Tannehill, you can't throw deep. You won't throw deep. You can't beat us deep.
Right.
We dare you. Double dare you. And, yeah, he took some, and he delivered on some. But, it just wasn't good enough.
No. At Branded9, what do you think happens with Mike Wallace after this season? Not sure if he even wants to stay here.
That's a good question.
That's
and
the question.
I'll probably ask Mike that. I'll ask Mike that question this week. And I don't even know if I could put it in words. He's frustrated. This isn't what he signed up for. And I don't want to speak for Mike, but he expected a lot better than what he got. And to Mike, I've realized money isn't everything. And he's right now, the Dolphins have a March option where they're going to commit to him, give him $3 million of a bonus, and pay him, I believe it's $9 million for this upcoming season. Or they're not going to give him that bonus and cut him and take the cap hit and let him go sign elsewhere. Either way, Mike Wallace is going to be fine. Mike Wallace has proven this year he's not the problem. He's open. He's open a lot. The problem is the quarterback can't get him the ball the way that he plays.
Right.
And if you can't, it's a marriage that's not going to work. And whether the Dolphins want to use him to space the field or serve as a decoy or make him a possession receiver, either way, you're misusing him.
Right. And as we've talked about before on the show, Mike Wallace, one of the most honest and open players on the team. Really, he only felt, you sort of got a feeling in August that he had taken some ownership, that he felt like he had worked with Tannehill in the offseason and felt somewhat comfortable that, okay, I'm finally a Dolphin, because last year he still had black and gold on his mind. Could not believe he wasn't in Pittsburgh anymore.
I don't know, but he just didn't feel comfortable exerting his leadership ability and challenging guys. And he's done that this year. Unfortunately, a lot of the dogs that were around him, kind of Brandon Albert and O'Shawn Moreno, that were helping to lead the offense, kind of fell to the wayside because of injury, and Mike's the last man standing, and unfortunately it's just not good enough. If you have to try to convince the coaches, we need to go deep, we need to be aggressive for 14 weeks, and they finally listen to you on week 15, are you in the right spot?
Well, probably not. So you think that it's almost guaranteed he's going to be like, get me out of here?
No.
New coach, new quarterback, maybe he's open to staying, or what do you think?
I think he's fine either way. He's going to go out. Either the Dolphins are going to pay him that $9 million and give him that $3 million bonus in March, or he's going to be ahead of the market in free agency when they release him. And either way, Mike can go out and get an $8 million deal anywhere go play with a better quarterback and be contending for a playoff team, and he'll be fine. I'm not saying Mike Wallace wants to be released. I'm not saying he's not happy to be here. I don't want to speak for Mike, but I can guarantee you, either way, whatever the Dolphins do, Mike Wallace will be fine.
And this is not what he signed up for. I think that's
it's clearly not what he signed up for.
Well, we mentioned a possible coaching change, probable coaching change, definite coaching change that's coming. So
it's coming. It's coming.
So let's talk about Joe Philbin's possible replacements. That's what we do here on X's and Omar. We tackle the tough questions, and boy, do you folks have a lot for us this week. Our first tough one comes from West 12 Hype Man, who wants to know, Omar, the GM, looks at who will replace Philbin. Is that how this is going to work?
Omar, the GM, looks at who
Omar, the GM.
Please tell, they want me to tell you who I would replace Joe Philbin with. You know what? Here's my approach to this whole coaching staff, coaching search thing. I have been here for the end of Nick Saban. I've been here for the beginning, for Cam Cameron's one miraculous year, failing forward slowly, not fast, slowly.
Right, slowly.
I have been here for the new era of regime change and Bill Parcells with Tony Sparano as the head coach, the rah-rah players guy. And that was okay for a little while. I have now been here for Joe Philbin, the offensive coordinator guru, genius, who was supposed to develop the quarterback and make him special. You know what the common thread in a lot of those coaches are? They were all first-time NFL coaches. Right. I'm done with first-time NFL coaches. I don't want any more. And from this standpoint, while there are talented coaches out there who are deserving of an opportunity to become a head coach, like Dan Quinn, who's going to be, Seattle Seahawks defensive coordinator. He has done an amazing job. Is probably going to lead his team to maybe another Super Bowl victory. I like the Seahawks. I am not comfortable with him, and he's probably going to go be the Jets head coach. I'm not comfortable with him. Todd Bowles, who we had here as the Dolphins head coach. Todd Bowles led them to, I believe, a 3-1 record when Tony Sparano was fired. Good man, good coach, coaching one of the most aggressive defenses in Arizona Cardinals. Nobody has a reason why the Arizona Cardinals are winning outside of coaching, because they certainly don't have elite talent.
Players
and
anywhere.
they're on their third quarterback. But that defense is elite, and Todd Bowles is certainly deserving of another opportunity to become a head coach. However, I don't want him here. And the reason I don't want him here, one, he was your fourth choice the last time around when you did this head coaching search. You saw him be a leader, and you said, it wasn't good enough. We needed an offensive guy, and you probably still do need an offensive guy. But the problem with rookie head coaches is they don't know what they don't know. And that's my biggest issue with Joe Philbin. I know things about Joe Philbin's position that Joe Philbin doesn't know. And you know why? Because I've been here with head coaches who've learned through that process and made rookie mistakes and have grown from rookie mistakes. I could tell you the reason why they start slow in every game. It's because they don't have more competitive periods early in practice. I learned that from Tony Sparano when he changed things and made practices more competitive early in practice. It allowed them to start better. Tony Sparano's team figured it out. Joe Philbin's team spent all year trying to figure out why they start slow, because they sleepwalk through practice for 30 minutes and then all of a sudden it becomes competitive. Here's my thing. Give me a recycled head coach. Give me the Jim Mora Jr. Give me, I'll even say, Mike Holmgren. Yes, he failed with Cleveland as the GM, not the head coach. I think he's interested in getting back into the game. Give me the Rex Ryan. He cannot do anything with offense. He's a horrible offensive coach. But you put him with a coach like Bill Lazor and you let Rex Ryan be the motivator, be everything that Joe Philbin isn't, and maybe you can have progress. Mike Smith's probably tenure in Atlanta is ending. I'm interested in Mike Smith. He's a good man, good leader. His teams have not matched expectations, but they've been pretty good. Mike Shanahan failed in Washington. Bad situation with RG3. How many coaches is RG3 going to kill? And you know what? Mike Shanahan hasn't proven that he's not a good head coach. He's certainly better than what Joe Philbin has brought. Josh McDaniel, offensive coordinator with the New England Patriots, failed in Denver. Has he learned from his mistakes? That's what I want. I want a coach who has learned from his mistakes and is ready to take it to the next level by altering his approach, putting together a better staff so that he can be more successful the second time around like Bill Belichick was.
But that's the tough thing to juggle, though, is that you've got to figure out which of these coaches
learned from his
made mistakes
yes,
and can improve, and which ones are just bad head coaches.
That's true.
Because by definition, you know who also is not a rookie head coach? Joe Philbin anymore, because he'll be entering his fourth season. So can he learn from these mistakes?
The problem is Joe Philbin is not a leader of men. Joe Philbin is not an alpha male. If you do not have a leader of men in a locker room full of 53 grown men, 53 of the toughest individuals in sports in South Florida, if they don't want to follow you, you're not a leader. And this team is not following Joe Philbin. This team is not inspired by Joe Philbin. This team will not play hard for Joe Philbin. He cannot maximize what they do. And people will say, oh, they're all getting paid, they're all professionals. Okay, that's great. But if the best thing that your coach does is put you in position to be successful based on the game plan that he builds, and then that game plan isn't working, what then does he have to offer you?
And when you partner that up, make that marriage of not an alpha head coach with not an alpha quarterback, then you're a team without any leaders.
That's true. And when you're leadership, a lot of times leadership feels stifled on that team in terms of they can't be who they are because you know what? Joe Philbin's not very comfortable with alpha male personalities.
Well, I'll tell you what. There might not be a bigger alpha male personality in the NFL than Jim Harbaugh.
That's true.
Will Hayes wants to know, what is a fair price on getting Jim Harbaugh, in your opinion?
You know what? There's a lot of stuff out there right now about Jim Harbaugh, interest in the Dolphins, Steve Ross making a second attempt at him. Steve Ross tried to pursue him 4 years ago when he stepped out on Tony Sparano and sort of tried to court Jim Harbaugh before he signed with the 49ers. I think that that's an avenue that we're going to explore again. Whether Jim Harbaugh is going to be at Michigan, going to be coaching the Oakland Raiders, going to be coaching the New York Jets, he's going to be somewhere because that divorce is pending with the 49ers. The relationship has gone completely sour. That team is not matching up to expectations. I mean, if you look at it, Jim Harbaugh and and Joe Philbin have the exact same record, and Jim Harbaugh has more talent. So clearly something is wrong, but Jim Harbaugh is going to be getting a fresh start. I think it's going to take a $7 million a year contract, probably 4 or 5 years, $7 million a year, and I think it's also going to take probably a second-round pick to get him in a trade with the 49ers.
Is he worth it?
I think he is.
Yeah.
From the standpoint, if you look at his record, I believe he's 43-18 in his 4 years as a head coach. Joe Philbin is now what? 40. Joe Philbin has two more losses than he has two wins. I believe he's
22 and 24.
Something, I don't know.
Okay, something like that.
It's mediocre. Jim Harbaugh has proven that he can coach everywhere he's gone. The question is, his personality is a little bit challenging. He's going to wear out his welcome. He's not exactly a friendly individual. He's not going to be great with the media. But you do know that he can help a quarterback develop. You do know he can inspire men. You do know he can assemble a staff. If that's the route that you go for it, I give you my endorsement. The problem is he going to be able to hire his own GM? Are you going to give him full power? And I say, yeah, why not? Yeah. If he's the best coach in the game, if he's this generation's next Bill Belichick, why wouldn't you?
Well, Oakland's going to offer him that. And he's
but here's the problem with Oakland. I agree with you. He is a California guy. He's a Bay Area guy. Every job he's had in the NFL, including being the Oakland Raiders' quarterback coach, has been in California. His family, he's got young kids. They don't want to leave California.
Coach at Stanford for a long time.
Coach at Stanford for a long time. They're still living in the same house that they lived in when he coached at Stanford. So maybe he doesn't want to leave the Bay. Only problem is there's no guarantee that the Oakland Raiders are actually going to be there. Their lease is up. They might be moving to L.A. They might be moving to San Antonio, and their ownership doesn't have real money.
Right.
So you can certainly give him full power and give him reign of the organization, but is that going to be enough to lure Jim Harbaugh to stay there, especially when Oakland doesn't have much to offer from a talent standpoint? So it'll be interesting to see. There's also University of Michigan. Why haven't they hired a head coach? Because they're still waiting on Jim Harbaugh.
Right, and he's not going back to college.
Maybe he is. That's the only way he can get out of that contract without having to pay 49ers some penalty. He can leave.
I think it's...
He can leave. He can just walk up, pick up, and go coach at University of Michigan.
You've talked to pro coach, when you leave and you stop that whole recruiting process, which is now...
It's easy to pick recruiting back up. He did it before at Stanford. He's at the University of Michigan. For 1 year, you could pick up just 15 recruits, and then you could pile on 5 more the next year. Listen, coaching is coaching.
But the actual process of recruiting is a gigantically different side of coaching in the NFL.
You know why Nick Saban is back in the NFL? Because Nick Saban realized he wanted to coach
college.
boys.
Yeah.
Is back in college. Because he realized he wanted to coach boys and change the lives of boys, turn them to men, as opposed to deal with millionaires and the business side of football. And the NFL is business. It's really business. And that's a turnoff to some coaches. And it might be a turnoff to Jim Harbaugh, considering all that's going on there. I mean, right now he's in a power struggle with the GM over who deserves credit for how good the 49ers are. It's petty, it's childish, but it's the NFL.
Well,
and you might want to go back to college where you can become the king.
Right. Well, but he's also seems, you tell about petty. He seems like that kind of guy that has those personal sort of rivalries, and he doesn't have any more rivalries than he has with his brother and with Pete Carroll.
That's family.
All right, but you know what, brothers? One of them has a Super Bowl championship. One of them has that ring.
He's been there.
And his biggest rival is Pete Carroll, and he's got that ring.
I believe
Jim
he's
Harbaugh
been
doesn't
to
have that
3
ring.
NFC championships, right? Yes? 3 or 4?
Yeah, 3.
3. I mean, pretty good, right?
He doesn't have that ring. He doesn't have that bling.
I think he'll survive. I think he'll survive with that $7 million paycheck.
Well, anyway, let's move on. At DMatic1, how might snagging Harbaugh affect the Dolphins' front office? Shirley Ross won't make a GM coach mismatch again.
How do you know he won't?
Yeah, I guess we don't, right?
The one thing that we know about Steve Ross is that he just continues to just pull off one piece of the scab and let the other one heal and replace it. You know what? Let's just pull this Band-Aid off at one time and do it all clean. I think Dennis Hickey has done a very good job as a GM for the Dolphins. I like the talent that he's added to the teams. I like some of the selections that he's made. A lot of the draft picks, I think, have talent. A lot of the free agents, they played well before they got hurt. Unfortunately, it's just not good enough.
Right.
And here's the thing that I think in a Jim Harbaugh situation. Tom Gamble is his guy. Everybody knows Tom Gamble is his guy, and maybe he will pick. He will probably handpick his own GM that works for him. Who knows if Dennis Hickey can still not find a role in the organization somehow, some way? Maybe the handpicked guy that works with Harbaugh becomes vice president of football operations, and Dennis Hickey remains the GM. We don't know yet. It's too early to say what's going to happen to everybody involved.
Right. I mean, I think it's kind of, he's in the same deal as Tannehill. Not one of the major questions from this team, but at the same time haven't done enough to prove that they are the answer.
He's only had 1 year, though, but, you know, the reality is nobody cares.
Right. Well, it's a GM, right. It does, nobody, okay.
They care, but nobody cares.
Right. At Stephen Batoni, what will it take for Ross to lure John Gruden, a.k.a. Chucky, to South Florida?
John Gruden is coming back to
Not
coaching.
coming. Done.
Listen, John Gruden makes $4 million a year talking about football once a week.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. It's the best job in college sport, in all of sports. It's really what he needs to continue to do. Every year you hear him come out in December, I might be interested in coaching. And then every year ESPN responds by, here, John, here's more money.
Right.
And that's the game that John Gruden plays. He doesn't want to coach. And in fact, I highly doubt that he can assemble a good staff anymore. His boys are all gone. Everybody's moved on. And I really don't think he wants to come back into the NFL and prove that he's not as good of a coach as everybody thinks he is.
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's a big enough deal, but the farther that you get away, the more.
You're so removed
Bill
from the
Cowher's,
game.
same deal. All right, at ScottDog41 is intrigued about Rex Ryan. If you could get him a good OC to complement his defensive mind, would that work?
Everybody knows I'm a fan of Rex Ryan.
I love Rex Ryan.
Listen, just from the standpoint, yes, his team sucks now, but there's a lot of reasons that they suck, starting with the fact that he's never had a quarterback. He's been to 2 AFC championship games without a quarterback.
Right.
That, to me, gains respect. They purged the roster last year, didn't spend all the money to build the team back up. This year, still doesn't have a quarterback. I know Rex Ryan will either go do television and become the next John Gruden and do very well at it, or he'll be recycled in the organization. I'm curious to see what will happen in regards to the relationship that the Dolphins have. A lot of the Dolphins figures, Mark Higgs, who was with the Jets, who is Steve Ross's right-hand man. Now they've got a consultant who used to be Rex Ryan's former boss. You don't know. There are a lot of ties there. I think Rex is a good coach. I think he will do well at his next spot, especially if he gets the right quarterback. And I think that's probably what he needs to hold out for. Wait for the right quarterback.
So he's not coming to Miami, is what you're saying?
I don't know yet. It's too early to tell on all that.
There.
Well, you could win. You could win with Ryan Tannehill.
Okay.
Ryan Tannehill's better than Mark Sanchez. Not much.
Yeah, not much, but it's probably true.
Yes.
What's interesting is I have no idea what Rex really wants to do. I mean, he could take a year off. He might
should
need
take a year off
That's
to
what
do
everyone
football.
should. I think when
Yeah.
you've gone through the kinds of strain I think that Rex has gone through this year, just take a year off. You can have whatever you want after the year's over.
They're already going to pay you. Why not?
At Anil M wants to know, is anything about the coaching staff salvageable, or do you blow the whole thing up? Just restart the whole thing.
You know what? Last time the last 2 times they've made coaching changes. Some coaches have stuck around. Then Casey Rogers, Dan Campbell, Darren Rizzi. Those are all coaches that Joe Philbin inherited from the previous staff, and they've stuck around. And I would say those individuals have still done a good job. Obviously, the defensive line isn't very good right now.
Right.
But a lot of that has to do with the fact that injuries have taken toll on the unit. It's a lot of the age. Cam Wake isn't setting the edge anymore. Randy Starks is battling some kind of injury that's impacting his play. It's an issue. Darren Rizzi his special teams has been hot and cold this year, but you know he's proven he's a good coach. And then Mark Duffner, the linebacker coach, I think he's done a very admirable job in terms of making Koemisi a respectable inside linebacker, which is a challenge, and then making Jelani Jenkins produce and become a very effective player. I think, Mark Duffner will be fine whether he's here with the Dolphins or not. But in terms of salvageable, Casey Rogers, Dan Campbell, Darren Rizzi, and then Mark Duffner, those are the guys that I would say have a chance of sticking around.
What about Laser?
You know what? it's just not good enough.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about the development, have you seen develop from Ryan Tannehill? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is it the same development that Nick Foles made the previous year? No. Ryan Tannehill still has holes in his game that they've masked and compensated for. Well, okay, teams have figured out how to expose those issues, and you haven't adjusted. I was so disappointed in terms of the red zone plays that were called against the Patriots. It was garbage, trash. And that's Bill Lazor. He calls the plays. It wasn't all execution that was the issue. The plays were trash. And you know, red zone and third downs have been issues all season. All season. We talked about them on this show all season. Still not fixed.
Right.
Getting worse.
Well, and we could talk all about these assistants as much as we want. It comes down to hiring the correct head coach, and then that head coach is going to be able to do whatever he wants. Sunday's a pretty big home game from this standpoint. The Dolphins still have work to do to produce the franchise's first winning season since 2008.
9 wins, baby. 9 wins.
Try to find something here. It's not the playoffs. That does seem like a good accomplishment for the Dolphins. What's standing in their way?
I think they're on fumes from a defensive standpoint. If Koa Misi and Jelani Jenkins don't come back, you're still dealing with backup linebackers out on the field. You're still dealing with a lot of Phillip Wheeler on the field. Their secondary, their cornerbacks, Cortland Finnegan, Jamar Taylor, Jimmy Wilson, they're all playing hurt if they're playing. Brent Grimes, your only healthy cornerback out there. It's a challenge. And then defensive line, they don't have any depth anymore, and they need another defensive tackle, a nose tackle that can clog up the running lanes, and it's just adding so much pressure to the entire unit.
You wrote about it this week. Really didn't think you'd miss Paul Soliai this much as the team has.
You know what? Nobody appreciates a nose tackle until you don't have one. Paul Soliai's job was to be a pillar of granite on that defensive line. 2 guys are blocking him, trying to move him, and he wasn't going anywhere. He wasn't making a tackle, but he was taking up his blocks, keeping the linebackers free to do what they need to do. Now that's not happening. Now, you're getting these defensive tackles turned. They're shooting gaps, and the gaps are out of the play. It's just bad play right now, and you really need to address the inside linebacker play and the nose tackle play moving forward for this defense to even get to the level of respectability again.
Did they think Earl Mitchell was going to be able to fill that hole? Is that the issue, or what?
It's hard for me to sit here and say that, because I still haven't really gotten a good feel for Earl Mitchell's game. He is a one-gap penetrator,
right?
And that's not a nose tackle,
right?
So I don't know how they can, and that's the role that they've used him for. And yeah, he played a nose tackle role in Houston, but that's not what he does here. And I haven't seen Earl Mitchell take on 2 blocks effectively and well all season. And so I can't sit here and say that the Dolphins signed him because he was a good value signing, but was he the replacement for Paul Soliai? I don't think so.
Well, the Vikings lost Adrian Peterson after one game, of course, due to the child abuse scandal. That's a nasty situation. It's an ongoing battle between Peterson and the NFL.
That's getting ugly.
So, well, it has been. It's not just getting. It has been. What's Peterson's future in the NFL, and is it in Minnesota?
You know what? I have a hard time believing that the Minnesota Vikings, if you just put Adrian Peterson in the free agent market next year, he's going to get a $50 million deal, if not $60 million deal, and be the most pursued running back. If he's a free agent, I'm going to bang the table for the Dolphins to sign him because he's an elite player of this generation. It's like Barry Sanders becoming a free agent. You go get him. You do what it takes. So I have a hard time believing that the Minnesota Vikings are going to let him free. They're probably going to say, you know what, Adrian, it's okay. We're sorry. It was all good. Please come back to us. Or they're going to try to trade him. And even if they do try to trade him, I'd be interested in that too.
Sure.
There are going to be 3 good backs out on the market that I think the Dolphins have to explore. Marshawn Lynch, who's likely going to be coming free as a free agent with Seattle. Frank Gore, who obviously you've seen his situation sour in 49ers. I still think Frank's a good back. Frank, that's my guy, so I'm a little biased. And then Adrian Peterson. I like what Lamar Miller has done. He's 171 yards from 1,000 rushing yards for the season, and I think he's done an admirable job. The problem is he's not an every down back. He's not a workhorse back, and that's what you need for this offense.
All right, Minnesota handed the keys to rookie quarterback Teddy Bridgewater earlier this season, and the Miami native has led the Vikings to 6 wins this year. What's the biggest challenge about Bridgewater and Minnesota's offense?
They're a physical team. And offensively and defensively, they want to run the ball. I believe they've got 1,564 rushing yards. A lot of that, most of that, well, Adrian Peterson only played one game, is without Adrian Peterson. 10 rushing touchdowns, 4.4 yards per carry. They're going to run at these Dolphins. And as you've seen the past couple of weeks, if you run at them, they will give it up. And I think that their defense, I like their defense.
Defense is great.
Very physical. It's a 4-3 scheme. It's a very physical and aggressive team, and you've got to be able to respond to it. And I think they're going to challenge some of these tackles.
Certainly defensively, I think that the Vikings pose a huge problem to what we've seen out of this Dolphins offense lately. I think this Dolphins defense is going to be able to throw some things at Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, here's the thing about Teddy Bridgewater, and I like him. I think he's the Chad Pennington of his era in terms of a guy who throws good touch passes and throws with relative accuracy. He's completing 63% of his passes. He's not afraid to go deep. Problem is, he doesn't have the arm to make the big boy NFL throws, the 15-yard outs, the outside the boundary throws. And I think that that's where he's going to struggle with this team. If I'm the Dolphins, I'm jumping his routes. That's why I really predict a 24-20 victory for the Dolphins at home against the Minnesota Vikings, just because I really do believe that they just have just enough to get you to 8 wins. 9, I don't know about it, but I think that they've got one last gasp of effort.
All right. Our next question comes from Dan Falbum. Most concerning issue is the defensive line. This was a strength before the season, really during the early part of the season. Is this bad coaching? Is it the players? Is it the scheme? Or is it just butt whipping?
As I told you, they don't have a nose tackle. The linebackers aren't cleaning up. The edge isn't being set. It's just fundamentally they've fallen apart as a team. Deion Jordan isn't much help as a pass rusher. Derek Shelby's playing defensive tackle when he's a defensive end. Terrence Fede is too young and green to contribute. Anthony Johnson's done for the season with a season-ending injury. There's just not much left.
Right. You said a couple times on Twitter that the old guys are looking a little old.
They are looking a little old. Cameron Wake, Randy Starks, looking old.
Okay. Jeff Jackson, what should the Finns draft in the first round this upcoming season?
As I've mentioned, nose tackle, linebacker. I'm looking for a heat-seeking missile as an inside linebacker. That's my priority when I go to the Senior Bowl. And then nose tackle. You got to find a guy who's 340 pounds, moves like a cat, the next Vince Wilfork. Maybe Patriots let Vince Wilfork go. You've got to get better in terms of your ability to stop the run, because that sets the table for everything. That's my top priority. Obviously, they're going to be reshuffling some of these wide receivers unit, whether they release Brandon Gibson, whether they release Brian Hartline, whether they release Mike Wallace. The only one that I would say is here for sure is Jarvis Landry. I would think that you need more run-after-catch players, and you need sort of a bigger target as a wide receiver. But those are my priorities in terms of what this Dolphins team. And certainly I'm drafting another center because I'm keeping Mike Pouncey at guard.
All right. Chris Stacy wants to know what stadium improvements will be completed for next season.
You know what? Talking to Tom Garfinkel, he says that they're going to be moving the stadium closer to the field. It's going to be closer to the field. Once the season is completed after the Jets game, they're going to clean out the whole lower bowl, take out all the seats in the stadium, put new seats in the top levels, clean out the 4 corners, and put a new bowl area that's going to bring the stadium seats closer to the field, and then also put suite levels on the ground floor. That's phase 1. That's going to be ready before the season begins. And then phase 2 is to put new televisions into the 4 corners, put 4 different club level areas like a Boat Campers or Club Live into the 4 corners, just like Jacksonville has, and then the canopy.
And then the canopy.
And that's going to be, the canopy's next. But right now, next year, the Dolphins and the Hurricanes are going to have better seats and closer to the field, which should give you a better atmosphere.
But then I would imagine lots of those people that get to hang out on the field, the corner of the end zone, won't have that anymore. Maybe.
Sacrifices must be made. You want to be on the field? Buy a suite level on the field.
There. All right. We have had a few questions during the show. Is there any chance that we see a fire Philbin promote Laser to head coach situation? That is from Tori Totha.
No, because Steve Ross has to send the message that he is loyal and committed for the next head coach, and he's allowed Joe Philbin 3 years. He's allowed he ran off GMs saying, if you want this job, you've got to accept Joe Philbin and be totally on board and committed to what he's doing. And 3 GMs said no thanks.
Right.
Steve Ross is trying to send a message that he's loyal and committed to whoever he's with, and is fully supporting what they believe in and giving them what they need to be successful. Firing Joe Philbin before the season's over, what's the point of that?
So for someone like @IGuyFoodis, who doesn't want to give up on Laser after 1 year.
What's the reason you don't want to give up on Laser after 1 year? Is it because you want continuity in terms of Ryan Tannehill's offense? You don't want him to have to learn a second offense in 2 seasons? Is that good enough reason to say that Laser should be your guy? Here's my thing about head coaches. When you give somebody the head coach, you allow him to pick his staff, you allow him to pick the ingredients that he's going to cook with. If you don't do that, you're setting them up for failure. So there's no way that I say to whoever is going to be the next head coach, you have to inherit XYZ as your coach, or you have to take the players that this person picks. If you, as Bill Parcells infamously said, if you want me to cook the meal, let me buy some of the groceries.
Right. Well, we'll see. One more quick question. That comes from K. Devroy. Do the Dolphins re-sign Knowshon Moreno?
No. Okay. No. He's got a degenerate knee issue that's fallen apart this year. You can go out and get better backs. Maybe a minimum deal, but Knowshon's done here.
All right. You've given us your prediction already, 24-20. I'm taking the Dolphins also in a victory, 23-13.
Hopefully they won't make us look stupid.
I know. We have both picked up the pace picking these games. Not sure if that's a good or a bad thing, but it is our reality. We see that as the win. Okay, so that's going to do it for X's and Omar for this week. We're on next Tuesday. Because of the holidays coming up, we are going to do Tuesdays the next 2 weeks at 12:15, breaking down these Dolphins games that really, in the big scheme of things, don't matter. But
hey, you got to get the 9 wins, baby.
All right, we'll see.
Winning season.
If you're looking for more Dolphins news, you can find Omar Kelly's First and 10 with Dolphins quarterback Matt Moore and tailback LaMichael James on the SunSentinel.com sports pages. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next week.